They're not sure why. They just know that there's deep buried anger. Complex trauma creates anger issues. So most people with complex trauma realize that they've had anger issues for as long as they can remember. There's been a part of them that might have been pushed into the subconscious, but when they become aware of it, they realize it's always been there and it's always been angry. And what some begin to realize is that they're actually afraid of their anger. It's like if I was to start to let my anger out, it would be like, I don't know how to put a lid back on that box. It would just, I'm afraid something terrible would happen. So I got to keep my anger repressed because I'm afraid to let it out even a little bit because I don't know how I could stop it. And that causes a lot of people to have a lot of guilt about their anger because if they've let it out a little bit, they've usually damaged somebody else. And that's created a lot of guilt. So for them, their anger has only been used in negative, hurtful ways. And so now they've got guilt on top of their anger. Most realize that their anger kind of has a nanosecond trip switch. That something can happen and in a nanosecond, 0 to 100, they lose it. They go from calm to extremely angry, and it's not a pretty sight. And what is concerning to them is that they don't just have one thing that triggers their anger. They have hundreds of different things that trigger their anger. And so it's like they're walking through a minefield where their anger could get set off in 100 different ways on any given day. Some even have experienced where their anger, they quickly go to a black rage. And what I mean by that is it's almost like they lose consciousness of what is happening. They just get so consumed by their anger that later they don't even remember what they did. It's like they have a blackout regarding what happens in those moments. And that's a scary thing for them because they don't know what they did or who they hurt. It's important to understand up front that anger is probably one of the most intense emotions, and it creates this powerful pull to act in certain ways. What is important to understand, again, up front, is that anger was initially designed to pull us in a positive direction. And I'll explain that in a little bit. What happens in complex trauma is that gets messed up, and now anger pulls us in a negative direction, in a harmful direction. And to stop that pull is so hard because anger, part of what makes it intense is cortisol is released to help you fight. And so now it's a turbocharged emotion that's got extra chemicals behind it. And so to try to control that is even more difficult. Some find that anger becomes their default setting. They become addicted to anger. They need to have anger, feel anger every day to feel normal, to feel alive, to feel energy. And that's a dangerous place for them. So they don't need something to trigger them to become angry. They can get themselves angry every morning. They purposely try to get themselves angry because that gives them the energy to get going in the day. Another aspect of this is that many develop strong anger towards themselves because of their shame. So they were told it was wrong to express anger externally. They were told they were the problem. So all of that anger got turned inward, and they have huge anger at themselves. For those who struggle with addiction, anger can be a huge relapse issue because as soon as they get angry, okay, I'm going to go use drugs or alcohol. That's their solution to when they're feeling anger. It becomes their excuse to go get drunk or high. So it's a huge relapse issue for those struggling with addiction. I think it's important to understand that anger there's two types. So I call it the lava in the volcano and the eruption of the volcano. So most people with complex trauma have this simmering lava that has been there for as long as they can remember. It just bubbles below the surface, often subconsciously. Once in a while, something triggers it and there's an eruption of anger. So what is important to understand is when a lot of people think of anger, they go, I'm not an angry person. And what they're really saying to me is, I don't have the eruption. So in their mind, anger is only an eruption, an explosion. What I want them to see is, but you've got the lava. And that lava can be turned inward. That lava can just simmer away and become passive aggressive in how it affects stuff. And it doesn't look like you're angry, but you've got a ton of anger down there. That is what becomes important for many people in complex trauma to understand, is that anger isn't just explosions. Anger has other forms, and lava is so important to understand. So let's ask, where does this lava come from? So let's go back to anger was designed as a good emotion. It was designed to kick in whenever something violated love. So if somebody lied to you, if somebody stole from you, if somebody cheated on you, if somebody disrespected you, you should get angry because they're hurting you. And if they continue doing that, it's going to continue to hurt you, but it's going to hurt the relationship. And so anger kicks in to say, hey, that's a violation of love. That's going to do short-term and long-term damage. And so anger motivates you to try to push the relationship back to healthy. So what happens when a relationship, when something violates love, is it steps outside of that boundary of healthy. And anger is saying, no, we got to get back inside healthy boundaries. We got to be respectful. We got to be honest. We got to be faithful to each other. We got to respect each other. So anger provides the motivation and the energy to try to get something back to a healthy state. And the brain releases cortisol to help do that. Secondly, if a person is in danger and they don't have the tools to resolve it, then anger, the cortisol, gives them extra energy to fight or flight, to get out of danger. So anger has two very, very good purposes in protecting a child and keeping stuff loving. But what happens in complex trauma? There's all kinds of things that violate love. There's disrespect all the time. Needs aren't being met. People are hurting each other. People are lying to each other. It's just constant violation of love. The child is getting angry, and they should be. That's good anger. But how do the parents respond to that anger? They punish it. They say they shouldn't have that. And so now what happens to this anger is, instead of it resolving a situation or leading to a situation being resolved, more pain is added on top of it. So anger doesn't resolve situations in their mind. Anger leads to more pain. Now you're going to get punished. Now you're going to get judged. Now you're going to get shamed. Anger's bad. Let's repress anger. So they push it down. Now what is important to understand is that anger might not be expressed, and they might not even be aware of how much is being pushed down, but it begins to show itself. So as soon as children find something weaker, often they need to vent the anger. So they become a bully, they get engaged in vandalism, they're unkind to animals, all kinds of different things where the anger's trying to come out. So all of this anger pushed down creates lava. But it creates this thinking that anger's bad. Anger, if expressed, only leads to more pain. Somebody always will get hurt when there's anger. So it soon becomes nothing about love. It all becomes about, this is a terrible thing that leads to more pain and hurt. What then happens as the child gets older, they got all this anger inside, is they learn that when it comes out at certain times and in certain situations, it actually benefits them. So they start to use anger not to bring about love and restore love. They start to use anger in unhealthy ways that give them instant gratification. So they find out, wow, when I get angry, I intimidate people, and then I can manipulate them. I can control them. They get afraid of me and they do what I want. So anger is a great tool in my manipulation toolbox. Also, when I'm angry, I don't feel other emotions. I don't feel pain. I don't feel hurt. So if I stay angry, and that's the only emotion I feel because it's so intense, then I don't feel all the other emotions. I kind of like that. And then what happens with people is, as soon as I feel embarrassment, let's switch it to anger quickly. So anger becomes a secondary emotion. So as soon as I feel anxiety, embarrassment, shame, fear, let's turn it to anger. And they can do that within a nanosecond. So they don't even know anymore what the real emotion is. All they know is I'm feeling anger. Another tool that many children used anger for was to create boundaries. So they tried to say no to people. People didn't respect their boundary. And so they had only two options left. They could isolate from people and create a boundary geographically, or they could blow up and use anger to drive people away. The problem with that is when they blow up and drive people away, usually they feel guilty afterwards, and then they let everybody back in until they feel overwhelmed again, and then they drive them away. So anger became part of setting boundaries. Then another thing is they're getting hurt all the time. What they found is when they use their anger in sneaky ways, they can hurt others. So anger is a great tool to hurt people. So anger now is not about protecting love. Anger is now a tool to hurt people. Then others find, I like anger because that cortisol is released, which releases adrenaline. It gives me energy. And so if I'm feeling tired, if I'm feeling run down, anger gives me the energy to be productive, to get through the day. Others, anger becomes a bit of a shield, a radar system, a protective guard. So the fear is when you live in danger, if I drop my guard, something bad will happen that I didn't see coming. What children learn is if I stay angry, I stay on guard. I don't drop my guard when I'm angry. So let's stay angry because then I'll never drop my guard. I'll never get hurt. Then what people find is when they're angry, their natural response is two things. They become self-righteous. They always feel right, and that feels good. Secondly, they always blame somebody else for their anger. It's their fault that I'm angry. And so it gets the attention off of me. It gets the focus on others. It keeps me from having to look at myself honestly. I've always got somebody else to blame. So anger is an important tool in denying the real issues, in feeling good about myself instead of guilt and shame. So I hope what you begin to realize is children coming out of complex trauma, they started with the right use of anger. That got shut down. Then they developed all of these unhealthy uses of anger. So recovery is going to require relearning anger. Relearning that there's healthy anger. Relearning not to feel guilty about that. To learn to express that in healthy ways. To learn to manage that. To give up all of the unhealthy ways of anger. There are a lot of tools there. That's a big challenge, but it is an important part of growth and recovery, because this anger thing, usually we end up damaging those we love the most. And so that's why we want to grow in this area, is to stop doing damage in intimate relationships.